We gon' run it, hit the field, blast off, watch them all fall. This is AFC North Talk. Got me hype, it's about to be a touchdown. Got the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, and the Browns. Are you listening? It's time to get it hype. Tune in when the season poppin'. Yeah, we going live. Hey, knock 'em out. Ay, first down, going hard. Yes, indeed. AFC North Talk. Let's go. Hey, AFC North Talk.
Welcome to another edition of AFC North Talk. Here we are post-draft. It was an interesting draft. Obviously, we were here live round one. Some people were happy with their picks. Some people were not as happy with their picks. So we're gonna discuss that. We're gonna go through all rounds. We're gonna, each of us assess our teams. It was funny because day two, it started happy, and then I was confused, right? Because I said that I haven't looked at tape of I do this shit. This is a problem that I have. I'm Scar, right? Like I told this to Q in this live stream, right?
About Olu? Well, no, y'all didn't get Olu for Shano, did you?
No. I'm talking about Isaiah Adisa
Isaac. Yes.
We were talking how I don't look at Florida safeties, right? And then I didn't want to look at any linebacker from Penn State, but boom, our third round pick, linebacker from Penn State. But anyway, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna show the grades. This is the NFL Network. I don't care about the grades necessarily. It's just so we can have all the picks per team. And we're gonna go here. We have a poll out there. Who won the draft? Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, or the Browns? Let's start with the Steelers. Steelers went beefy. They went beefy. They added Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, the Wilson brothers, or the Wilson gang, with Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, Mason McCormick, a guy that we like in this pod, guard from South Dakota, Logan Lee.
I forgot they got him.
Yeah.
I can't stand him, man.
And Ryan Watts.
The only draft pick I don't mind that they took is Peyton Wilson. I'm like, you know what? I didn't believe in him, so I'm fine with that. But other than that, this draft looks.
That's what you saying till he's shutting down the middle of that field.
You look, man. There's been a long history of Steeler fans on this podcast telling me, "Oh, Quincy, you better watch out. This linebacker's going to be the one." And y'all ain't had a motherfucker there that I've worried about since Ryan Shazier.
Not since Chase did, but we was looking. We was waiting to draft one. We'll see what this one got.
Hey, you said Devin Bush didn't live up to the hype.
Whatever they told us, Cole Palmer was a starter.
he was just like Claypool, man. He did good through on his rookie year, and after that he just fell off, man. He got the injury bug and then fell off.
Hey man, we'll fix that. We'll fix Devin Bush. Don't you worry about it. Cleveland got him.
I bet you will.
Yeah,
we gonna fix him.
We'll realize that potential.
Wait, did he sign with y'all? I forgot about that. I forgot that.
He got competition to be a Sam linebacker for us, and we'll fix that.
So J-Rock, what do you thought about this draft? Obviously, I know you wanted Mims, and we'll talk about Mims later because a different team in the North took Mims. But what do you thought about this draft? Obviously, again, they went beefy.
Man, I loved it. I mean, obviously, we addressed our needs. I mean, I think that you can't go wrong with in the first two rounds getting two of the top 3 or 5, offensive linemen in the draft. You know what I'm saying? So I think we addressed our needs. I think we did a good job on being able to pick them. I think Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin probably put the word in. Look, don't pick my man. Because I don't know how these centers didn't fall off the board early, but after JPJ fell off the board, I said, "Oh man!" I started getting a little sick, and we wound up getting Frazier with it. So I mean, I'm optimistic about it. Like I said, I think we got a Doug and Roman Wilson. He did your boy Nate Wiggins dirty in the Senior Bowl this past year, so I'm optimistic to say about that. I think we did good with picking up Peyton Wilson, regarded as the best linebacker in the draft. And now I think we got the good depth with McCormick. I think we also got some solid picks with Ryan and what was the last pick? Let me see.
I can put it back up. You had Logan
Ryan?
Lee and Ryan Watts.
Yeah, Logan Lee. Yeah, so I think we got some solid depth on the D line with Logan Lee. I heard some good things about him, and then to be honest, I wasn't that hype on Ryan Watts, but I think that we're gonna see what he's gonna do. I think when it comes to Marius Mims, I'm not that mad because I think it was the Jedi mind trick that that old Moncon was putting out there so that people would get hype on Mims. But I think like after Cincinnati picked him, I was kind of glad that we didn't pick him up just because of like what we was talking about before about the injury history.
Oh, now you was glad.
Yeah.
Look,
I remember all the mocks, J-Rock.
I remember a mock
every
draft.
single
I
mock.
snatched him.
That was your
I
guy.
think he was glad that I snatched him.
The Jedi mind trick, I'm trying to tell you. It
Why
worked.
you playing Tomlin games on us? We not picking no
I
draft
got
picks.
and look, these videos, believe it or not, get touch a lot of people that you don't think that they touch. So I was trying to put it out there.
I see. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I will say this about the Steelers draft. I personally like it. I'm not gonna lie. I like Troy Fautanu. Zach Frazier, I look a little bit of him because I said maybe there's a potential of us taking an interior guy to play guard, not necessarily center. He looked like a solid guy. I definitely look at Mason McCormick field, and I liked him a lot.
Did you guys go Zach over Jackson Powers Johnson?
No, he was out before.
He went out to the Raiders, I believe.
Slid pretty far. I was like, did he make it all the way to y'all?
No. Vegas picked him first. Vegas picked him, and then we got Frazier.
Yes. Anyway, I like the lineman that you guys picked. The question with Fautanu coming to this draft was, can he be a tackle? Can he be a guard? If he's a guard, then essentially in this draft, you could have basically fixed all your interior. I was talking to a Steelers fan, and he was saying to me that for some reason the Steelers front office believe that Moore can be the left tackle, but that Fautano's there to push to see if he can push more out. And then they're going to keep Broderick on the right side. So it looked like Broderick is going to stay there on the right tackle side. So Roman Wilson, I like him, especially in the third round. Peyton Wilson, I agree with Q. There's some things there, but in the third round, late third.
That's a steal.
I mean, you can.
It's worth the chance, right?
Yeah, exactly. At that point, you take the chance. I know the guy, another Steelers fan that we know, said like ACL's important because Peyton Wilson apparently has no ACL. I don't even know if that's a thing.
You're missing.
So, but you take a chance at that point, right? And then late third, you're just taking chances. So I thought it was solid. But Ace, what do you think, man?
Yeah, we not gonna forget about that.
That means
Harris 5th-year option. We gonna get into that later. We not gonna prance over that.
Hey,
but
hold on to speak to that point. Hey, if instead of Najee Harris, y'all took Jaylen Warren in the first round, would he be getting that 5th-year option?
For sure, and he would get more carries too.
Yeah.
I mean, versatility, you can't really beat it. I mean, that man breaking tackles and outrunning people. So,
whoa, who? You talking about Jaylen Warren, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Najee Harris was outrunning people. I'm like, I need evidence.
Naji's throwing people on the ground, but he ain't outrunning nobody.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, when it comes down to the Steelers draft, it's no secret that I was a big Troy Fautanu guy. The only question with Troy Fautanu, similar to like if you want to talk about Mims' health, is what position is he playing at the next level? So a lot of teams kind of called him a guard. I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers do play him at tackle. I mean, they do have Isaac still there, so I assume that they're going to play him at left tackle. A lot of draft analysts feel like there's limitations. When I watched the film of him at left tackle, he seemed like he could play left tackle. Now, obviously, that's in college versus the NFL, But either way, I feel like the Steelers kind of got the last good lineman that was kind of left before that next crop of guys there. So I love the value of them getting a Troy Fautanu and the versatility that he has. Like if he doesn't work out at left tackle, you can move him to guard and still have a quality player. So I really like that pick. Zach Frazier, I think, was a pick that they just kind of had to make, right? Because the Steelers' offensive line has been very bad. So that with Mason McCormick also makes sense. You're getting him out of South Dakota State. So you're trying to shore up the offensive line. Now, it is an offensive line for Russell Wilson, but that's neither here nor there. They're shoring up that offensive line, so I like that. I actually did like their draft a lot. You talk about Roman Wilson. To me, that's just Tyler Boyd. It's just like, all right, we didn't sign Tyler Boyd, so we're just going to draft Tyler Boyd instead and pay him a cheaper price. So they were able to bring in Roman Wilson. My only question with that is who's playing the outside receiver on the other side? Because you got George Pickens, you got Roman Wilson in the slot. But right now on our lads, Van Jefferson is your outside receiver right now. So I don't imagine that that's going to stick. Like maybe they trade for somebody or bring in a veteran or something like that. But I do have a concern there for them at the receiver position in terms of the wide receiver, or no, not wide, but the Z receiver for them. Peyton Wilson was a great pick, I think, for them. I think he fell because he had some off the field stuff and he had some injury history stuff. But for them to get him at the point that they did, I thought was good value. The only issue I had with the Steelers don't like corners. Like y'all don't like drafting corners. Y'all are just like, nah.
That's the Ravens.
Like there were a lot of good corners on the board, literally at 20. This was a draft where none of the top corners went that high, and the Steelers did not take advantage of that. They were just like F corner. I'm starting to feel like the Steelers just don't care about the corner position.
Didn't Cooper DeJean get that the second?
Cooper DeJean was there. There was a lot of people there, and they were just like F them corners. They were just like F them corners. So that's the only slight I would have against them is, hey, I would have liked to have seen you guys take a corner potentially, but obviously they feel like offensive line is more paramount than a second corner. But I thought that they had a good draft. I mean, I'm not used to seeing the Steelers have a great draft like this. Obviously, we have to see 3 years from now. But I thought on paper right now, it looks like a really good draft for the Steelers.
So Coop was drafted 40th, Q. So by the time they picked Frazier, Coop wasn't there.
They could have picked any corner they wanted at 20.
On the 20, yes. At 20, there was all the corners.
Where did Steelers pick? Like 44?
51. Here.
All right, so that's not trade up.
20 and 51.
51.
Yeah, that's not trade up range, but
they still had options though. Q. They had plenty of options every round.
I'm shocked that they let that. I'm shocked that they let Quinyon get past him because I'm like, damn, man, that would have solved a lot of problems.
Quinyon there. They passed on Terrion. They passed on Cooper. They passed on them all.
Also, like Fontanu was there. I was like I like the Zach Frazier pick. The only thing I look at is like you could have been more aggressive in the second round, but one of the things I'm trying to do is I do this more often. Is just I just want to evaluate with the draft. Do I think that you got good players, right? Because I think we do too much about trying to make sure it matches with position. Because you could draft somebody at the right position, but if they cheeks, it don't even matter that you drafted somebody at the right. But you just drafted, somebody you're gonna cut
Artie
it.
Burns.
Right? Like that don't really solve the problem.
Goodness.
Like how many dudes?
I'm not talking about Artie Burns.
Yeah, like how many dudes did you get in this draft? And the Steelers got a lot of guys that I liked, right? Troy Fontanu out of Washington. Maybe he plays left, maybe he plays guard, but you know that you have another position on that offensive line locked up. And I'm getting the increasing feeling that Broderick Jones is going to stay on the right side. Like they just might think he's a right tackle for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it seems like that's where they're going. And something I smell early because I was like, there's no freaking way that they're like, yo, Dan Moore is enough to make somebody not play left tackle. Like, I get that you didn't want to get to the worst, but if you thought he was a left tackle, he would be playing left tackle. Zach Frazier, I like to pick out of West Virginia. I think he'll be a fine center. Sounds like a dude who'd be good. Like, don't that sound like somebody who played center for like 8 years?
Yeah.
It does.
Zach Frazier. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Roman Wilson, I like him as I'm gonna just put this out there in honor of the Raven great and the last great Raven wide receiver, Willie Snead. Okay. He is
disrespect.
He is the this is
Yeah,
the
I'm about
Willie
to say
Snead.
that's disrespectful. Not even a Brandon Stokely.
No, he's saying the last good one. He's saying the last good one.
The last
But-
truly
Oh, okay.
productive.
So you're saying that
non-fumbling.
You're saying Roman is a shame mover.
I think that's the space. He's in that class of wide receiver where you're like, you know what, Rashad Higgins, him, like just get a first down, 3 first downs a game, and on
That's
third
crazy.
down, and you good with that, right? And I think that's what Roman Wilson's going to be. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, good route runner, real sticky guy with his routes. And good hands. It's just, I don't think he has tremendous upside. Like, I think he's a dude that if you get him in camp and he's cooking in camp at the start, he's going to be what he's supposed to be. If you get him in camp and it's taking a while, he's not going to be what you want him to be, right? Like, because the athletic gifts, either they translate or they not. Either he knows how to get open or he doesn't, right? Similar to David Bell. The Browns drafted somebody who was a little bit of a baller at the Big Ten level, but got to the NFL, couldn't separate. When last time you heard David Bell, right? So that's where I'm at with Roman. I think this could be a good pick here. Peyton Wilson, not a big fan of him. Not a big, like, even before the medicals, like, I'm just not a fan of like his game. Like, I like the linebackers who crash. Like, I like the Pat Queens of the world. I like the linebackers who get around the ball. And Peyton Wilson isn't not that. He's just not the best version of that in this draft, or even a version of that I felt like would be able to be a contributor in the first 2 years. And he's not somebody I want to sit around, but I could be wrong on that one. Mason McCormick. Hey man, this is real easy when somebody goes from your rival college to your rival team. Like, it's real easy to carry on that hate. Saw him destroy my Penguins last year in South Dakota State. I think he's the real deal. I think he's a people mover, right? Like, that's what Mason McCormick's going to be. A 4th round pick. I think he'll end up starting eventually for the Steelers at some point during the season or within the next couple of years. I think he's a real deal at guard. I had him right below Christian Haynes. Like Cooper Beebe, him, Christian Haynes, I had them all around the same class of guard, and I think that's a really good pick there in the 4th round. Don't know nothing about Logan Lee because I do not watch Iowa football for fun. Like, that's just I don't know about y'all. I'm not out here like, yo, who's Iowa playing? I don't care. Ryan Watts, not overly familiar with him again because the Browns have not had a need at defensive back in quite a while. But overall, I think it's a good draft. I think you got some guys in this draft. I think there's 4 possibles to me. I think there's 4 in a possible here. And if out of that 4 in a possible, you get 3 good players, it's a hell of a draft.
Okay, so let's go to the next one here. Sorry. We gonna go with the Bengals. Here was Mims. Here was the Mims pick. Here's where J-Rock was probably his dreams were crushed at that moment.
I'm interested.
Don't let J-Rock fool you. Every mock draft, the first thing that J-Rock said was, "Is Mims there? If Mims is there, I'm gonna get him." Anyway, and then I know
trying to work trades and shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then
then you don't get him.
Put the voodoo on you. Look.
I think that wasn't there actually one where I took Mims and he had to take Troy Fautanu? Didn't that actually happen?
I think so. Yeah.
I think where that
was the last one. The last one that we did.
It is so wild to me that the Bengals picked before the Steelers, because like at no point did I think the Bengals were a worse team than the Steelers. So in my head, I'm like, Pittsburgh definitely picked first, right? But they didn't finish in last.
For me, by the way, the Bengals draft, there's a couple of key players here that I did film and I like. I was big on Mims minus medical. I said this throughout the draft process, right? I said, like, I like what I see in film. Medicals scare me.
They have this Bengals draft they have a lot of man.
Exactly, right? I agree. I agree.
Like, hey, if we just looking at the tape in a vacuum, they got some ballers.
Yeah.
Some other things you got to worry about with a couple of the picks, but I like
Chris Jenkins. I think he's a dog. I like him a lot. I know. Ace is very big on Burton, and I think you compare him to your boy Tyler Boyd over there in the slot.
I think he's a little dead. Tyler Boyd isn't that fast. Jermaine Burton is very fast.
McKinley Jackson. I don't know much about him. I know Eric Hall, big upside, similar to Mims, right?
I'm
Uh,
shocked that
I
he's
love
there.
Josh Newton, by the way. The Josh Newton for me was, I had him maybe like a fourth rounder, third to fourth rounder, a guy that can develop with time. I like him a lot. And the other two guys, I personally don't know much about them. But Ace, you tell me, what do you thought?
Yeah, I mean, this was a draft where the Bengals kept every pick that they had. They had 10 picks in this draft, and it's no secret. Like, I wasn't big on Amarius Mims, and it had nothing to do with the talent. It was all about kind of the injury history and consistency. But I understand why the Bengals did it, especially after seeing this kid. Like, obviously, you know from watching the film what he looks like, but to see this guy be 6'7", 340, no gut, like all muscle, in a situation where he can actually sit on the bench behind and learn from a Trent Brown and a Orlando Brown Jr. and know that if one of those guys go down, like the Bengals have seen literally the last couple of seasons, that you do have somewhat of a blue chip prospect coming off of the bench to be able to step in there. The thing that really sold me on Mims, so the tape that I watched, it was games that he didn't finish. That made me frustrated. But I went back and I watched the national championship the year before when he got in against Ohio State, and he went against the edge rusher that killed Olu Fashanu and gave Joe Alt problems. He didn't do anything against Amarius Mims, and that kind of had me like, okay, we got something here. So like maybe this is a guy that can do something. And then like I kind of worried about the lack of playing time, right? And talked to one of my boys. Apparently, Mims was supposed to transfer to Florida State because he was upset that he wasn't playing. He jumped in the transfer portal and decided to go back to Georgia. But apparently, Georgia is like huge on seniority. So I was wondering, like, why couldn't this guy start over Warren McClendon? And I was told like that pretty much was the case. So I think the Bengals took advantage of the fact that most people are going to look at Mims and look at possibly the injury history, right? Which he doesn't necessarily, he's not an injury prone player. He just ended up having injuries the first year that he started. So he had the tightrope injury and then he had the hamstring thing, but it's not like these are previous histories that he's had before. So it's not like a John Ross situation where it's like, yeah, he tore his ACL and then he tore his other MCL or whatever, and now we're expecting him to play wide receiver. So to me, maybe it's just bad luck, and I'm going to hope for that. But I think that it's a high ceiling pick for them. And I understand why they look at a guy like Troy Fautanu, who most people are like, he's a guard. And they look at this 6'7", 340-pound guy, and they're like, yeah, we're going to take the bigger, younger guy with the higher ceiling. And so I'm not mad at them for taking Amarius Mims, especially where they went in the second round, because they went and got Chris Jenkins, who I like. He's an athlete. He's still not really much of a finished product either, though. Like, he's a guy that kind of has to be developed. He's really good at stopping the run. However, he still needs to develop as a pass rusher. So I'm interested to see what they do with him. I imagine that they're going to try to play him in the 3-tech role with the Bengals. However, you still have Sheldon Rankins and you also have BJ Hill. So I'm really wondering how much Chris Jenkins is going to play. And the funny thing is I think the guy that was taken later in McKinley Jackson makes a lot of sense. So like a lot of Bengals fans didn't like McKinley Jackson, and I understand, but going into this draft, especially after I figured that we'd move on from DJ Reader, I knew that there were only 2 nose tackles in this draft. It was either Tavondre Sweat or McKinley Jackson. Those
went early.
Yeah, those were literally, and that's the thing. Tavondre Sweat went early. Everybody expected, Tavondre Sweat's going to be there because of the DWI, and the Titans were like, nope. And the Titans probably, with them having Callahan, they probably knew the Bengals would be like, if Tavondre Sweat's there, they're going to take him. So I'm not mad at the Bengals for taking him. I know some people felt like it was an earlier pick, but literally it is a disaster at nose tackle if anybody just decides to take McKinley Jackson if the Bengals don't take him there. So I totally understand it. And I actually feel like he's a guy that could step in and actually start at nose tackle on first and second down. And I actually watched his tape. He's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, he's this horrible athlete. But when I watched the tape, I didn't really see that. He was actually pretty quick. He actually has some pass rush ability as well. So I think McKinley Jackson is just going to be a solid guy. I don't think he's going to be like DJ Reader, But if he's a guy that you can put in against the Baltimores of the world, against the Browns to try to help with the run, I think he's a good pick for them. I think Jermaine Burton was my favorite pick of the entire draft. You couldn't tell me anything. Like, I remember the first prime receiver that I had calculated was Jermaine Burton. And then when I saw the off the field stuff, I'm like, nah, the Bengals aren't going to take him because there's this whole we've got this good culture now. We're not bringing in guys that have any terms of locker room issues or anything like that. And I feel like to a point, some of the Jermaine Burton stuff is a little overblown. But you know, Jermaine Burton to me is just a nastier version of the Migos potentially, just because he is that deep threat. You talk about a guy that averaged 20 yards per catch. Like the last guy that did that coming out of college was Jamar Chase. So like for them to have two guys, a guy that can take the top off of the middle of the defense is something much needed, especially with how teams are going to scheme against the Bengals. So Jermaine Burton was my favorite pick. He's a guy that you immediately can put in the slot, pair with T and Jamar. He can also play on the outside, so he's not a guy that's just refined to the slot receiver role. So you kind of get a burner there. And then Eric All, I think that's more of a pick where obviously he's recovering from an injury. So they're trying to take like a little scratch off and they're hoping that hits. But I think they're just going to give him the year to kind of get right? Like I think that's why they took Tanner McLachlan later. And I actually like McLachlan. Like he's a guy that when I watched the tape, he jumped off. I remember I was just watching tight ends one day and I'm like, who is this guy out of Arizona? And apparently he's broken Gronk's records and stuff. I don't think he's going to be Gronk, but I think he's going to be a serviceable receiver that could push a guy like Drew Sample off of the roster, that could push for tight end too. And I think possibly like he could end up being the guy that's the sleeper, like similar to when the Bengals took Mohamed Sanu and then they took Marvin Jones later. I think he kind of could be one of those guys that may end up outperforming the guy that was taken in round 4, or Eric All could be a solid pick. I'm just going to be glad to not have to talk about tight ends again, hopefully next offseason, because the Bengals have done a lot of patchwork at the tight end position. There's been no secret with them having that revolving door there. So I'm hoping that one of these guys can stick around after Mike Gesicki. Josh Newton, didn't know much about him going into the draft because I expected the Bengals to take a corner a little bit earlier, but there was really that run of corners in like the second and third round. And so when I saw them get Josh Newton and the more that I kind of dug into it, I think that he's a solid pick. I think he could play some inside corner for them. The only issue with him is tackling and I believe deep speed. So I don't know if he's built to play on the outside, even though he has kind of at least the size to play there. I don't know if he has the speed. So I like them taking Josh Newton for depth just to add to that corner locker room. Apparently they like what they have in DJ Turner and CTB because I expected them to go corner a lot earlier. They didn't. They stayed there. And apparently Dax Hill is going to be a corner now. So I don't know what that says about the Bengals 2022 first-round draft pick with him moving to outside corner now. Cedric Johnson is just an athlete.
Yes.
Go ahead, Crew.
They're going to move him from safety. I have rarely seen that one.
So what they did was we got Geno Stone, right? Geno Stone is going to take over his position. They brought back Von Bell. So I'm assuming that they're going to put Von Bell there because the other safety position was fine. Jordan Battle was actually good for them, but I think they want Von back because they want somebody that's familiar with Lou's scheme because there was just too many miscommunications on the back end last season. So with them having Geno Stone, Von Bell, and Jordan Battle, there's just honestly no room for Dax Hill to kind of fit into that equation. So they're hoping that he can compete at outside corner because inside corner is actually sold up with Mike Hilton. So there's no way, in my opinion, that he would beat out Mike Hilton for nickel corner. So I think that's the only way that they're hoping. I honestly think that makes the Dax Hill pick look bad. If I'm just being honest, like that makes it look like this guy might be a bust because they've kind of not been able to find a position for him. Like he's known as the Swiss Army knife, but they literally started him off in nickel corner, moved him out of nickel corner into safety, gave him a year at safety. Now they're like, we're going to put you outside. So I just don't think they know what they want to do with Dax, and it doesn't make the pick look good. But one of the other best draft picks that the Bengals made was actually the last one in the 7th round, Matt Lee out of the University of Miami. Really like that guy. Don't know how he lasted that long, but I think he could be a guy that could be better than some of those guys they took in the 4th and 5th round. I think Matt Lee is a guy that could actually possibly be the future center of the team if he ends up working out.
Q. You have anything to say about the Bengals draft?
Armarius Mims, I think just you got to hope the medicals work out. If the medicals work out, you're probably going to get the Bengals are a team that needs to take a big swing at tackle, anyways, right? Because you don't want to end up in another situation where you get another Jonah Williams when you're playing in the AFC North and you have these premier pass rushers.
Yeah, you do. You get another Jonah Williams. We need that.
Right. So like if I'm the Bengals, I'm like, I understand why you're like, no, we got to take the swing, right? Like it's worth the risk to see if Armarius Mims can't stay healthy, can't translate. Like, okay, cool. Then we know we got to get another guy. But if you get somebody who's all right, then you kind of stuck with them. And this is just not there. They don't run the type of scheme where you can just be stuck with a mediocre tackle and be okay with it. We've seen what's happened with them and their offensive lines when they've been stuck in those situations. So I think they're taking a swing. They think Armarius has as much potential to be the tackle in the first round that gets the least snaps and he has as much potential to be the tackle in the first round that is the best one of all of them, right? So we'll see what happens there. Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle out of Michigan at 49. I think this was a need pick for sure. Like they needed to take a defensive tackle. I wasn't the biggest fan of Chris Jenkins coming out of Michigan, but I don't think it's a bad pick. Jermaine Burton, I think that's a great pick. I was hoping the Browns would get him at 85, but he got taken off the board there by Cincinnati. I think that's going to work out. McKinley Jackson is super interesting to me at 97 because I know one techs are something that the Bengals utilize. But I wonder if it was possible if they were just like a little bit more patient that they could get a team. Like I know for a fact the Browns have an excess of one techs. They're probably going to cut Siaki Ika, right? Like would it have been worth it for them to wait around for something like that? Maybe they felt like it was that bad of a situation that they were in. McKinley, he's a high energy guy. He loves to go the bull rush, right? Like he went bull rush like all Senior Bowl. I do wonder, like, is he actually long enough to play nose in the NFL? Like that's the big concern for me. But we'll see. Eric Ali, Josh Newton, Tanner McLaughlin. I don't really have much to say about the late round picks that they had there. But overall, you know, I think Jermaine Burton can work out. I think Armarius Mims can work out. And look, Armarius Mims is the type of player that if he works out and lives up to his full potential, it does not matter what happened to the rest of this draft. If Jermaine Burton lives up to his full potential, it does not matter what happens in the rest of this draft, right? Like those are two big swings at positions that I think they need to make those swings at. And I trust the Bengals when it comes to wide receivers. So Jermaine Burton, that feels like something that's going to work out.
J-Rock, anything on the Bengals stealing your dream pick?
I mean, the Bengals had a good draft. I mean, I really like their draft. I really like all of their picks, to be honest. I really think that the first, I would say 5. I really think that the first 5 picks are gonna even, get substantial play time. I mean, of course, you talk about Armarius Mims, but we all know the issue is his health. So I mean, if he can avoid that, I think he'll be a good player. We got 2 Dougs, I think, with Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson. I think both of them, they beefed up their defensive line, which was some of the issues that they had been having, especially with the injuries and the absences that they've been, having, and the issues they've been having with stopping the run on the line. So I think they filled some of their holes with those 2. I think Jermaine Burton was a great pick at wide receiver. I mean, like you said, we call him baby boy. But I mean, I think he was a good pick with that. I think that the tight end out of Iowa, Eric I think he'll be a great player. With beefing up the line and catching passes for them. So I think that they did good with those picks. To be honest, I'm not sure about Newton or Tanner or Cedric, or either the other last 2 picks. But I think that those picks, at least their first 5, I think they'll be substantial with those picks, and I think they did a pretty good job with that.
Okay, so because I know Q has a hard stop here. So let me jump to the Browns. Now, Q, I know we were talking about beef on the pre-draft between us here, and I said basically all AFC North teams are looking to bolster their O-line. You guys went with a pick that I know you've been clamming for years now.
The 1 year I'm not pounding the table for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I spent 3 years on this podcast begging the Browns to take a defensive tackle. And the 1 year I go, you know what? I give up. We'll just take an offensive tackle, right? We have all of the offensive tackles available there at 52, 54. We don't take them. So, like, you just never know when they're going to finally give you what you want. But this is the first time in Andrew Berry's run as the GM of the Cleveland Browns that he's taken a significant swing at the defensive tackle position outside of signing Dalvin Tomlinson, right? We've been wondering when they're going to get out of 1 year deal world. Well, Michael Hall is their guy to get out of it. Now, the thing with Michael Hall that I really liked when I got to see him at the Senior Bowl, juice guy, right? Like came out there. First of all, traits guy too, right? He has the traits. You see him on tape, elite quick step, first burst, like he fast as hell. And he ran a 4.7 something at 300 pounds. It's shocking that doesn't surprise people anymore. Like what? Like we just be making those now.
Yeah.
like oh yeah, he's 320. He's 300 pounds. He ran 4.75. I guess it's not a big deal. But yeah, he's a great athlete at that position. Super young. He doesn't turn 21 in another until the next month. So super young guy. And when I talk to people about this pick, think about it like this. There is a good chance if Michael Hall stays at Ohio State, gets another year, plays more consistently, plays against guys, and gets to be about the same age as the guys that he's playing against, he might look like a top 15 pick in the draft, right? But you're getting him in the second round because you're taking the chance on him developing. I think he will develop. I think the tools are there. I think the mindset is there. This dude was 20 years old leading people at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I thought that was very impressive how he was really getting his teammates' attention and how he was like kind of eager to compete in those drills. So I think Michael Hall, it's a 2-3 year thing. But I think he has the potential to be a very good pick for the Cleveland Browns. Zach Zinter is one that I don't know how to feel about, right? Like people say Zach Zinter fell to the third round because he was injured. I don't buy that completely, with the basic assumption being like if he doesn't get injured, he would have been in the second round. The reason I don't buy that is because this dude needed to play all them games that Michigan played at the end of the year, and he needed the Senior Bowl for people to feel comfortable about taking him in the second round, because he is a big guy, a mauler. He kind of reminds me like a Ben Cleveland, right? Where he can just out physical people at that college level. But when he played against schools that have those big guys outside of Penn State, he didn't look as good, right? He wasn't able to win as much. So he was somebody that I'm like, hey, it would have been real useful to see him finish Ohio State game. It would have been real useful for me to see him play against Alabama and those guys that they have in there, or play against Washington and the guys that they had on that defensive line. It would have been super useful to see him at the Senior Bowl and see if he can win with different techniques other than pure strength, right? But you didn't get to see any of that. You didn't get to see him test. You don't know how much of an athlete he is. So he fell to the third round. I'm waiting to see on him. I got to see him in practice before I really have a good grip on him. But for the third round pick, I think it's appropriate value for Zach Zinter. I was hoping we was going to go Mason McCormick or Cooper Beebe or somebody like that. But, they went Zach. Jamari Thrash is somebody I liked. I got to see him when he was at Georgia State. I also got to see him at the Senior Bowl. Really does run like aggressive routes. Like he has heavy, angry feet. And I think he had issues with drops his last year at Louisville, but I think that had more to do with the injury than anything. This guy likes contact. Like he's in that Willie Snead class of wide receivers to me, right? Where I'm like, he could do what Willie Snead did. Like eventually, I think he can get to that place. Real smart route runner, real smart wide receiver. Not the biggest body, not the greatest athlete. I know people call him a speedster. He's not a speedster. I think he ran like 4.46. But he is somebody I think can be, one of those like utility wide receivers. Nathaniel Watson, he's going to compete to make the practice squad. I mean, not the practice squad, the special teams roster. Yeah, but I don't know. I got to see more out of him before I get excited either way about him. And the last two guys, like Javon Briggs is strong as hell, right? But he's like kind of a, if one random ass defensive tackle actually does make it out of it and can play one tech that was in like that back pile of guys that Ace was really trying to avoid, this might be the guy who could do it. But Cincinnati, he played at Cincinnati. Cincinnati needed a nose tackle and they didn't do it. So like, I'm just saying, like, I feel like they would, if they felt like it could, if somebody felt like it could happen, they would know they didn't do it. But it's a 7th round pick. Who's tripping on that? Miles Harden, same thing. Overall, it's a solid draft. I gave it a C+, right? It's not something too exciting. I think you might get a plus level starter here. It may be like 2 starters, 1 plus level guy, and a rotational guy. And that's a solid draft.
Yeah. Q, again, I know you had to leave soon. Do you want to have any comments on the Ravens draft?
Yeah. I hate you. What do you mean? What do I mean? Do I want to talk about it? Yeah. I hate one pick you made. I kind of love the rest of this draft for me. Like,
Ravens, Rosengarten. That was beautiful.
A ton of they took Roger Rosengarten, but like everybody else in that first 4 rounds, I'm like, man, they took the Sonny don't want that all-star team. Like they took Nate Wiggins, they took Adisa Isaac, they took Tez. I know you hated that Tez Walker pick. I'm like, yo, there's one wide receiver Sonny is not gonna like. It is Tez, because Tez scared as hell to get pressed, and they took him. I'm like, yo, shout out to the Ravens. But I got my laughs in. Y'all did take my favorite player to draft, Roger Rosengarten, but you know, took Devin Leary. Like,
I mean, but Devin Leary is whatever, right? The hope is you never see him.
In all seriousness, Nate Wiggins might be a good corner. He's a great athlete, right? Yeah. We'll see if he turns out. I do think Roger Rosengarten is going to be a good tackle. Like, and who knows? The Ravens have really good luck with these like dudes, like Adisa Isaac, turning them into role players. And like, your problem with the Dafe Owe is that he was a 1st round pick. Like, if Odafe Owe was a 3rd round pick, you'd be fine.
Then I'll be fine. I agree with you. I agree with you.
They do a good job with these dudes in the late rounds. And like, even Tez Walker, there's some talent there. TJ Tampa. I like TJ Tampa.
I like TJ Tampa. Yeah. And then that pick, I had no problem with TJ Tampa either. Yeah.
Now, Rasheen Ali.
Is Devontae Walker, is that the new Justin Matabuke, Quincy, where you liked him and you drafted him and then he went to the Ravens?
No.
That would be Roger.
Devontae Walker, I was trolling when I was like, I want the Ravens to take him.
Yeah, no.
Because
Rosengarten can be.
Oh, no, my bad. I meant Rosengarten. Is Rosengarten the new Matabuke?
No, because at no point have I ever said, man, Roger Rosengarten just sounds like a Raven to me. Like, no, I never wanted that to be the reality.
I told you we were drafting Rosengarten. I said we will get
somebody always somebody, and they end up.
I know Q was sick.
Dog, I was saying damn on my stream for like 20 minutes straight. I reacted to the Ravens taking Roger Rosengarten how I imagine Drake was reacting for 6 minutes when he turned on his computer that morning on Tuesday. Okay, like, damn. Damn. Yeah. So
I tag Q very quickly when that happened. I'm like, this is poetic.
Yeah, I was like, go Kingsley, because I think Kingsley was still there. I'm like, all
Kingsley was the pink after us. Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, they go Kingsley. They ain't got to do Raj. You know, maybe Raj falls to 85. I was talking myself into them lies. And then Roger Rosengarten went 62. I was like, damn, Sonny knew, because he kept saying it. He not getting past 62. I was like, nah, maybe he will. Like, maybe y'all don't like him.
No, man, I loved him. Well, Q, if you had to go, we understand. I know you had a hard stop, so you'll be back here next week. For the rest of us here, since we have the Ravens pick, we're gonna talk about the Ravens pick here. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I was here live. Pick 1. I hear Nate Wiggins. I was like, what are we doing? Corner, really corner. Like this is no beef against the kid. I'm like more like on the position. Do we really need corner next year? I don't know how Ace you felt on the draft because I feel like the Bengals, and correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the Bengals, if not all the pick, most of the picks are picks for next year or for injuries. I'm talking about the Bengals. Maybe Burton, the wide receiver out of Alabama, somebody that can maybe impact this year. Yeah. Most of those picks. When I hear Nate Wiggins, I'm like, wait, Steven just came from balling, and Marlon Humphrey is your other starting corner.
Hey, Wiggins starting.
Well, after that was my initial thought, right? And then after thinking about it, going back watching his tape, because I didn't think like TJ Tampa. I watched the tape because that's a guy that I'm like, oh yeah, second, third round, we will get a corner, right, for future. Started looking, I like a lot what I see. I'm like, okay, I can see if this guy bulks up because I don't like his frame. I understand why people don't like his frame. This dude is tiny as hell, right? But then I thought, okay, speed, cover, like his cover skills were great. Like I'm watching this tape and he's there. He's there, a player reacting to the ball, great breakout. And I'm like, look, we had done this with Marlowe before. Throw him in the slot. It's not like we have a slot guy currently. So then I was okay with the pick. You guys know what I feel about Rosengarten, so I don't even have to talk about him. I said it. He was the guy. I wanted him. I think I don't have to worry about Fahalele coming in, right? Adisa Isaac. Then Adisa Isaac comes. Look, at that point, a lot of the receivers that I wanted, they weren't there. I'm not gonna lie. But Troy Franklin is there. I'm like, you know what? That's a good consolation pick. Also, another guy that I do like is Baker from Florida State or for UCF. I'm like, that's the pick. Has to. I tweeted before the pick. Has to be one of these two. Doesn't happen. We go Adisa Isaac. That surprised me. Again, Penn State outside linebacker. I was like, oh man, I seen this picture. Going back to see his tape, he looks better than Chop Robinson, right? And I'm looking at these two, and just again in college, and I'm like, wait, how does this kid fail? I think it's more. I think Chop Robinson has the same thing that Odafe had coming out of that draft. He looks great. He looks fantastic, right? Odafe had no production. He looked fantastic. We got baited. We drafted him in the first round. Adisa Isaac looks good. I'm not saying if you see Weiss, he's not, but not like Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson looks more imposing. I think that's why Isaac fell. I think in the third round pick, this year, you put him in the rotation, right? Right now, he's like an outside linebacker fourth in the depth chart. You have Van Noy there. Let him learn from Van Noy. Tess Walker, look, my hope with Tess. So day 3 is coming, and I'm like, Troy Franklin and Baker are there. Go trade, get them. You have it early, but they both go before our pick. I think they got Tess because of speed. The question with me is, can he be a Torrey Smith kind of guy? Torrey Smith was a guy that was fast, go route, a lot of offensive pass interference because he was fast. And that was basically it. Decent hand, not the best. He's going to be your wide receiver 3/4 next year. Maybe 5, I don't know. So it's a flyer, but look, in the year where you're full of receivers, this is the year of the receiver, the draft class. This is the receiver you take. I wasn't necessarily happy with it. TJ Tampa, good physical corner. I like a lot about TJ Tampa. I actually was surprised that he was there. I think who our GM said that he would have picked TJ Tampa beforehand, but since we picked Nate Wiggins, who wasn't the biggest need, but when he was there on the second pick in the 4th round, he said I couldn't let him pass. Rashid Ali, home run hitter type of guy, a guy that will learn behind King Henry and Keon Mitchell, and he's RB4 at this point. So there's more depth with him. Nope, I don't have no beef. Was it my favorite running back? No, but I didn't scout the running back class that hard to know if he was better than some of them. I did not like Leary. I did not like Leary. I wanted them to get the quarterback out of Tennessee, Milton. Yeah, Milton.
Yeah.
Developmental guy. I thought he could have fit better. I
Mhm.
saw Leary early his career have better years. He's gonna be your QB3, hoping that he can be your QB2 next year. I don't know, but it's a 6th-round pick. Last 2 pick, Nick Samak. Nick Samak is what I saw from him on tape. He's decent, 7th-round pick, center. You need a backup center in case something happens to Linderbaum. We'll coach him, we'll train him. I think potentially he can be that guy. The safety out of Purdue, more downhill kind of safety. He is there to fight for special team snaps. I think overall, like Wiggins, definitely. I mean, that's the hope that he's a starter. Rosengarten, I think, can be a starter. At least I think can he be in 3 years one of your starting outside linebackers, and can TJ Tampa again in 2 to 3 years. We have been lucky, by the way. Not lucky. Let me not say lucky because now it's trendy. The past 3 or 4 outside corners that we have picked, they have all become starters. That we don't pay and they ended up leaving, right? But they all have become starting corners. That's where TJ Tampa can be. This year, Stevens, right? Last year was Stevens, and this year again will be Stevens. I don't know if we're gonna have the money for Stevens. The question is then, can Wiggins and Isaac come and be those outside corners as the older guys leave? But your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think for me, there's 4 picks that I really like from the Ravens draft. All right, 4 picks. I don't know if I really like them, but I think that they're going to be good players. Okay. Nate Wiggins, the only thing that he can struggle with is he's going to have to put some weight, get some weight on his body, especially playing in the AFC North. But I did say last year, and a lot of people were like, Ace, what are you talking about? When I looked at the corner room, I felt like it was a little thin last year. Now, they obviously played well together, and I think that they got some good players, some good play out of the secondary overall. But I still felt like I'm not surprised to see them take 2 corners here, right? Nate Wiggins is somebody to add to the future of that room, somebody that could start immediately across from Marlon Humphrey, or they can put Marlon Humphrey in the slot. I think the same could go for TJ Tampa, who I thought was a good value pick for them. I think a lot of people had TJ Tampa going maybe 2nd round, 3rd round. So for them to get him in the 4th round, I felt like he was one of the last good corners left. They were able to snatch him up. I actually like Devontae Walker, so I actually wanted him on the Bengals. So when the Ravens got Devontae Walker in round 4, I kind of felt like he was one of the last solid receivers that were kind of left, because they kind of had a run on receivers between the 2nd and 3rd round. And I felt like, similar to Rosengarten, the Ravens kind of got the last one of those guys that were still kind of a part of that tier. So Roger Rosengarten, I thought, was a great pick. That was probably, to me, one of their best picks of the draft, especially the way that things fell, because they didn't reach for a tackle at the end of round 1, and then they waited and still were able to get a quality tackle with him falling to him. I don't even think they had to trade up. So for them to get Roger Rosengarten in the 2nd round, I thought was good value. Adisa Isaac makes sense. Like the Ravens as well, they're really good at the pass rush by committee and finding other ways to get pressure outside of just having elite edge rushers. But this makes sense for them to add a guy with some traits to that room to just try to find something where they can hit on. And I know that they ended up hitting in free agency at the position. And I think they're just taking a swing here to hope that they can do something from a draft perspective in terms of edge rusher, because they just, David Ojabo and Owe, they just haven't really lived up to it. So they're taking another swing here just in case one of those guys don't end up being the answer. So that makes sense. The rest of the draft, 5 through 7, I'm going to be honest, I'm not really familiar with many of these guys outside of maybe Nick. But the other guys, I have no idea who they are. Rasheen Ali, I didn't get to watch anything about him at the running back position. But with them having Derrick Henry, does it really matter? Like, they already have 2 running backs there. So this guy is probably just going to come in to be competition or practice squad kind of guy. They get a backup quarterback, I guess, because they lost some of their backup quarterbacks. But honestly, how many of those guys are actually playing? So I think the first half, rounds 1 through 4, is a really solid draft. And if you can get 4 to 5 guys of those to work out, I think it's a slam dunk for them. But I think from where they were drafting at, especially late, I thought that they had some pretty good value for the guys that they were able to come away with.
J-Rock.
Yes, sir, man. I like the Ravens drafts, man. I think that they, of course, made a good pick with Nate Wiggins. I think we in general, Pittsburgh in general wasn't high on him, and a lot of the other corners just because of size. So hopefully, if he gets his weight up, you know what I'm saying, he'll keep the skill that he has with that. But like Ace was saying, he's gonna have to put some weight on, to get with this division because we got a lot of big boys, a lot of big tight ends, a lot of big people in the slot, even receivers. You know what I'm saying, that he gotta, that he's gonna have to tackle. You're gonna have to tackle in the North. So I think they had a good pick with that. I mean, Rosengarten. We can't say enough about that. You know what I'm saying? We already know what Rosengarten does. And I think that was a good tackle. A good pick with that. They needed help, obviously, at the tackle position. Of course, that, like I said, like Sonny was saying, with Falele, they didn't really trust in him, which I understand because I was hoping they kept Falele. We was having a good time with him last year. But yeah, I think I've been the Adisa. I didn't really see too much about Adisi at linebacker, but Ravens always pick good defensive linebackers out of the draft, as well as running back. So I think he may be promising. I think he may have an opportunity to prove himself, but we'll see with that. My favorite pick from them was that Devontae Walker. I think that, watching the tape, I think that he has good upsides. I think that he had good speed. He got good hands. And I think that they need a solid option at receiver and at cheap because I think that they got all their money tied up between Metabike and Lamar Jackson. So, I think they made a good pick with Devontae Walker. I personally wanted to get TJ Tampa in the third round instead of picking up McCormick. I think I wanted to get TJ Tampa to get a DB in there because for some reason, like Ace was saying earlier, like I don't know why we're not getting DBs or cornerbacks. We're not drafting them, but I think, like I said, we kind of got a little bit scorned from getting players like Artie Burns and in the draft. I don't think we fully recovered from Artie Burns yet. But
that hit you hard.
Say it again.
That hit hard. Already.
That hurt. That hurt, man. That hurt. And we haven't really had solid draft capital from the corner position besides.
Well, last year, Porter Jr.
JPJ, but I'm talking about before that, since like Brian McFadden. And really, he had a solid rookie year. And his rookie year, we went to the Super Bowl. So, you know how long ago that was. But with that being said, we just hadn't had good play at the corner and hadn't had good draft stock in doing it. So, I think that they had a good pick with TJ Tampa. Like I said, I wanted him, but I'm glad that we still chose to go beef up the O-line with getting McCormick. But after that, I really didn't see too many other players that I probably would have picked if I was Pittsburgh. I kind of was scratching my head at the Lurie pick because I think that it was kind of like a plea, a rush pick, kind of like what we did last year with Kenny Pickett with Lurie. Doesn't really fit the mold of what Baltimore has been doing with the past few years, and even with the Lamar Jackson pick. With Tyler Huntley, he just doesn't fit that mold. To me, he's more of a traditional quarterback, standing in the pocket. And I'm not sure what they were kind of like doing with that. But
supposedly they asked T. Martin, the QB coach.
Say it again?
They asked the QB coach of the quarterbacks that were out there. I said we were going to draft a quarterback at some point. And supposedly T. Martin said that from the ones that were there, that he would prefer Leary.
Okay. They know better than I do because obviously they're scouts and stuff. But it just, like I said, it wasn't on the radar something that I would would think would be a player that the Ravens would pick. So I mean, I think that they, like I said, other than that, they pretty much had a good draft. Those bottom picks I really wasn't that familiar with. But I think that the Ravens normally always get quality play out of their draft picks. Even with, like I said, at the running back position, nobody expected Keaton last year to come in and do good. But he came in and was really lighting it up. So
Yep.
I think that he's probably going to have an expanded role as much as he can, spelling Derrick Henry. But with that being said, I think that they did solid. I think that it's got to be between the. I think the
You love
Bengals
it.
did. I think the Bengals did better than the Ravens,
Because
but I
you love
can't really
memes.
say it again.
Because you love memes. You can say it.
I
Mims.
mean,
That's your
Mims is
boy.
good, but I mean, I just think that they had more opportunity, more players to pick from. So I mean, that's really kind of like the determining factor. I mean, they had 10 picks if I'm not mistaken, right, East?
Yep. 10 picks.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't really beat that. But I mean, quality wise, I think the Ravens had just as much quality as anybody else. The determining factor to me was positioning and the need for what you had on your team. So
Yeah.
I think that, like I said, I think that
we gotta rank them though. We gotta rank them 1 to 4.
we gotta rank them. I mean, you seen what was posted. You seen the grades. I like my grade. I'm gonna stick with my grade.
So you got the Steelers 1. Who you got at 2?
For what they needed, I'm gonna go Bengals because I think the Bengals did, and then the Ravens. And I really, like I said, only think I'll go with the Bengals for 2 because they feel their needs and they beefed up that D line. And that was their weak point last year. So I think that's what they needed. And then, like I said, they got the solid picks with the tight ends. Yeah, but I definitely go.
So that means you got Cleveland at the bottom, huh?
Yeah, Cleveland
ain't gonna like that.
Cleveland.
By the way, vote wise for the fan vote, and it's still open for you guys to vote. Going away right now, with 40% Steelers. Second place, 25% Bengals. Third place, 18% Brownies, 17% Ravens.
If I had to do it, I don't try to be biased, man. I really think I think that Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are close. But I do feel like the Steelers got some players in the later rounds with higher ceilings. So like when you talk about Zach Frazier, when you talk about Peyton Wilson, I feel like the Bengals took some guys that could be like starters, like maybe just solid starters, not necessarily like high ceiling. Peyton Wilson could be like a star linebacker. Like that's his ceiling. Like if he lives up to the hype, he could have been one of the best linebackers in this class. So I'm going to get a slight edge to the Steelers for first. I got the Bengals second because I feel like we had a lot of picks. We hit on a lot of needs. Third, I'm going to go with the Ravens, even though I think you could almost tie the Bengals and the Ravens because the Ravens, I think, given the card that they were dealt, they did a great job. Like, I think the Ravens always draft well, so I don't think you can say that it's a bad draft for the Ravens. The Browns draft is the one where I come away and I'm like, the other three teams got like multiple possible players. The Browns, I feel like they got one good player, and
I like Hall.
He kind of has like the medical issue too, right? With Michael Hall. And then I like the Zach Zinter pick. However, a lot of Cleveland people didn't like it because it's like, oh, when is he gonna play? Because we got Batonio and all of that. So a lot of them didn't like it. The receiver Thrash, he's cool, but I feel like they probably should have gone receiver a little earlier, maybe with the Zach Zinter pick instead to keep up with the division because the Bengals took Burton, then the Steelers took Roman Wilson. And I think everybody was expecting, okay, here come the Browns. We're going to take a Troy Franklin when he was on the board, and they just didn't do it. And I feel like even though Troy Franklin fell, he was at least once talked about with like that first or second tier. Jamari Thrash, I don't know what tier he was in, but he wasn't in that tier with the other guys.
He definitely wasn't up there.
So I think with the Browns, it's like it's an okay draft, but it's not something where you would feel like they're with the rest of these teams. To me, it was almost kind of like an obvious for the Browns. And that's not to say that they had a bad draft, but I just think when you compare it, and obviously, like, who knows? Like, all of our picks could be trash and Jamari Thrash could be a star. And then they're like, hey, the Browns had a great draft. All you're really trying to hit on is 2 or 3 picks. But I just feel like the other teams, they took some safer bets when it comes to that.
Right.
Yeah, so
And personally, I just think that since they traded for Deshaun Watson, they haven't been drafting good. I mean, they
haven't had
any-
the draft capital. They
Yeah, you
drafted
haven't had
well.
any-
I won't say that they haven't drafted well because I think with some of those second round draft picks, especially you go back last year with them getting the tackle. Who am I thinking? What's his name?
Not Jones. The guy from I know who you're talking.
DeJuan Jones was a good pick. JLK was a good. Like they've hit on some of those second round picks, but this one doesn't feel like the DeJuan Jones. They knocked it out of the park type of draft.
Yeah, I would say this. I like Hall. So for the Browns draft, I like Hall. I don't necessarily have problems with the receiver
Emerson
because I do think they traded for Judy. They have Coop, and then the guy that's always like, well, let's see the potential, Elijah Moore, right? So they had those 3. I don't think it was a big need to go right away. But the people that they pick, I personally hasn't been a fan or wasn't a fan. Hall, good. Like Q, I think McCormick before the guy that they got in the interior. Also, if I had to rank these, it pains me to say, I do also think the Steelers, they win beef, and not only they win beef, they win with players that I also liked. Roman Wilson, I think he is a solid receiver. That's the word that I would use for Roman. And then 2 for me is the Ravens, and this is the only reason why I will put 2 just above the Bengals. Not necessarily a good reason, but these kids that the Ravens they pick. I think Wiggins, I think Rosengarten, those top 2 picks are starts day 1. The Bengals, I felt like same thing what they did with Dak, same thing, and which is not a bad thing. I actually would prefer to live in that world, but for your D tackle, the D tackles they end up being part of a rotation, but these kids will be more of will groom you so you can be the start next year, right? And I think Wiggins are gonna throw him fairly quick there to start, if not day 1. Rosengarten, I'm expecting him to be the starting right tackle day 1, right? So just because of that, because the need and the probably will equate to a starter day 1, at least Isaac might be part of a rotation, right? He that 3rd pick is more of let's learn, groom, and then potentially start, which is what we did last year with the linebacker out of Simpson or Clemson, right? Here we draft you, we're gonna put you behind PQ, you learn, PQ leaves, next year you're starting. I think the Bengals had some of that. Although I think Mims can push Trent Brown out and be the right tackle starter.
Yeah,
right?
Trent Brown is gonna get hurt, man. I hate to. It's eventually gonna happen because this is a guy that hasn't had like a full season in like 5-6
I don't
years.
disagree. I don't disagree. But my point is, Mims can have a great camp and be the starter day 1. But I just think that the Ravens, the top 2 picks, I think they start before the Bengals. Not necessarily a great thing. I think it's the need was bigger there for us than it was for you. That's why I will put the edge of the Ravens or the Bengals. But I would, like I said, I would prefer to live where the Bengals are. That you just draft the kid and give them an opportunity. A little, you have that cushion. You have that cushion. Wiggins will have some sort of that cushion. I think Rosengarten will not.
Gonna have that cushion with Jamar Chase on the outside.
Yeah. Well, when I say that he has a cushion, is you don't need like let's say you put him with Chase, and Chase abused him after the first series, right? And you can just push him somewhere else. You can put him on the bench, and you have Stevenson, Humphrey playing the outside, right? Like there's
you
other.
don't want to kill his confidence, though. I mean, this dude did put up 200 on Marlon Humphrey, so you don't want to just
Yeah.
throw him to the
Marlon
bench
Humphrey
and
does not
be
like that.
like,
Yeah, but our corners, right? Marlon Humphrey was a first round pick. And Jimmy Smith was a first round pick, and now Nate Wiggins is the other first round pick. Those are the last 3 first round pick corners. Yeah. When they start, they come and play snaps, and they're not necessarily day one starters right away. Marlon wasn't like so day one. So they bring him in, they play him a couple snaps here. They gave, let's say they gave him to Chase for like a play or two, they move him to another guy, and then they sit him, right? And then they do that so they can build experience, and boom, they put him to start. Unless he comes and kills it right away, that's what I think they're going to do. If he kills it right away, that's great. Then Marlon will come to the slot. I think Stevens stays on the outside. By the way, talking about Dax Hill earlier, what you guys are doing to Dax Hill is what we did to Stevens. And eventually, because he came, and Stevens' story is crazy because he was a running back in college. Then he transitioned to a safety in college. Or corner, I can't remember. Then we drafted him. We put him in the corner of the year 1. This is a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick. Then we made him a safety. And last year he went back to being a corner because of injuries, and he played great. Okay. Right? So Dax Hill can be a similar story. He found his spot. He played great last year, and then this year he's a corner. Anyway, last thing I want to do before we close this pod. Like I said, we had 2 super chats. Let me read those. Michael Brooks says Peyton Willis like Roquan wanna backdoor and avoid. Hell no, Roquan doesn't want to avoid. By the way, one thing that the teammates of Roquan Smith has said that every time they tackle somebody or they have somebody like wrap and the guy doesn't come down, they're expecting to get hit by Roquan because Roquan comes and just takes everybody down, right? And Marlon Humphrey has said like, man, if I don't bring this dude down, I know it's gonna be painful what's coming there with Roe. So anyway, and then people here says last Husky on the Raven was Marcus Peters. Go Roger. That's true. The Huskies had a lot of good players this year's draft. So last thing that I want to close out is the Steelers declined 2 fifth-year options. Not only that, I expected that. That's not surprising. You guys know what I think about Naji. You guys, in the case of Fields,
take a victory lap.
No, not taking the victory lap yet. But in the case of Fields, where are you gonna give him $25 million next year? You don't know if you're gonna keep him or not. That's guaranteed. But the goofy part is what Warren was saying. Yeah, that was. So Warren, your running back, you're starting the guy that should be starting your running back. He said that because of the new kickoff rules, that in the special team meetings or whatever, they were talking about putting Justin Fields to return.
Kickoff. That's fake news, man. That's fake news.
You think
that's
so?
That's not real. That's the voodoo that we did with Marius Mims. That's not. There's no way you invest in a quarterback like Justin Fields and put him on kick return. Come on now.
But there's no investment. There's no investment in Justin Fields. Your investment in Justin Fields is literally the same investment on that we did on Leary. It was a 6th round pick.
Right. That's true. But the ability that he has and the potential that we can use him for, even if it's this year, is that quarterback. That's what we need him at. We have at this point Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen. If something happened to the Russ, we're not going to Kyle Allen. We want Justin Fields. If that's going to be the starting order. But I mean, for that reason, we wouldn't have went to go get Cordell Patterson if we was really thinking about putting Justin Fields back there. That makes no sense. So I mean, I get that we thinking about doing like or the narrative is out there to do gimmicky stuff and to be able to try to like use his physical abilities out there. But I would very seriously doubt that they would be thinking about putting Justin Fields on kick return, regardless of the new rules. And I mean, I think that whoever they put back there is going to eat because, I mean, instead of having players get a 40-yard head start on knocking your head off, they got to wait until you catch the ball. But there's no way that they're going to put him in harm's way and put him back there to like pretty much ruin his career. Like it's a possibility that on any given play that you run that you're going to be able to hurt yourself. You know what I'm saying? But to have him back there returning kicks, nah, I can't see that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of goofy too. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, but it was a fun story. The fun story here in the off season. Anyway, let me see the final tally here. Steelers
But
40. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do want to address the Naji thing. I think that was kind of disappointing as a Steeler fan to see them not respect Naji enough to at least give him the 5th-year option and then let him pretty much pay him to pretty much work himself into a contract next year. At this point, of course, he's still on the roster until the end of next season. But I mean, like with that being said, it's almost kind of like we used him and then we're going to dump him off.
Do you
You know,
saw how much was the 5th-year option for Najee?
what it was like 21,
No, Fields was
25.
23. No, Fields was
Okay,
23. But
23.
no, Najee's was 6 mil, 6.4 mil.
Oh,
Very cheap. Very, very cheap. Which,
even more painful. Like pay that man $6 million, man.
yeah, he gone. That tells me he's really gone. Ace, what do you think about the Najee thing?
I mean, anytime I see a 5th-year option decline, that means that, and not necessarily because we've seen it happen. Maybe they don't want to pay at the running back position, but generally it just means that that player didn't work out. It's kind of like them admitting, like, we're not really tied to this guy beyond this season. To me, Najee Harris, he just hasn't lived up to what he was supposed to be there. He was a first-round running back, and then he hasn't worked out. So it's kind of admitting that Najee, like we said, isn't the best running back on the team. I think we've said for a while, Jaylen Warren just seems to be the better guy. He just doesn't have the draft status. Now it seems like the draft status from Najee is being stripped away with them saying, okay, 5th-year option, nah, we not doing that. Like you're out of here. And if somebody is saying that it was only 6 million, 6.97 million, that means that they feel like he's a bust. I'm gonna just keep it a buck. Like that means that they feel like that means that they feel like he's a bust. If they don't even want to pay 6 million when the running back market right now is like what, like 11, 12 or something close to that. They don't want to pay that. That means that they don't feel like he's worth that. And that's kind of crazy considering the new offensive coordinator that they got likes to run the ball. Like he doesn't believe in Najee. So I think they're just admitting like, all right, this was not a good pick.
Yeah, and again, I just want to speak to. I think that the biggest part of it is versatility. When we look at the play last year, it was the fact that not only could Jaylen Warren break tackles, but he can outrun you too. And I mean, like, we think about the versatility with Najee. Yeah, Najee gonna make you. He gonna break a couple tackles. He may make you miss. He gonna push for the extra yards, but he doesn't have the breakaway speed. He could catch out the backfield. He could do certain things that we needed him to do, but as far as explosibility, he didn't have what Jalen had. So I mean, I could definitely see why. But I think somebody put that type of work in for you these past 2 years, and I mean, it ain't like he's been a scrub. For the majority of the time that he's been there, they just haven't had a line. And then, like I said, when it comes to explosive running ability, he didn't have the speed. But he was productive. Just maybe not to the degree that people had hoped for him to be. And I mean, I guess that could really come from a difference in systems. You come from a system like Oklahoma, or where do you come from? Oklahoma. You come from
Alabama.
Yeah. Najee was Alabama.
I'm thinking Burgundy. But yeah, Alabama. You come from a system like Alabama, who that's all they do pretty much is run the ball. So you know they got a good offensive line. But for the past few years, we've been patchworking our offensive line here and there. Hasn't had the consistency with being able to even be a threat in the pass game. So over the past few years, we just haven't been able to give him his just due. But that's not to say that you don't reward him for the play and the success that he did have when we did give him a chance. That's the part that hurts me. And then to say that there's only $6 million, you couldn't pay that man $6 million. That's disrespectful.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back here next week. The schedule is about to be released soon too, so be sure to tune to the show. We'll be back here next week. Make sure you sub, hit the bell. We're almost at 10K, so make it happen, guys. We appreciate the support. And like I said, hit the bell so you know when we come live, especially in the off season. We're trying to figure out the best days / time for all of us. Obviously, in the regular season, we have a more set schedule. So again, make sure you hit the bell as you subscribe. Comment down below what was your favorite pick. Who was your favorite draft grade? Rank them. We would love to see that. And we will see y'all next time. Peace out.
Yeah.